Hey guys, and welcome to another devlog video. It's been a while since I've uploaded my last devlog. I didn't plan on taking as long as I did with this one, but the past month hasn't been without setbacks. So without further ado, in this video I'm going to show you how I reworked my old world generation code and how I went from this to this. And all the horrors in between. First of all, since I've been using the default Mixamo character up until now, I thought it was time to create an actual player model. Now, this was really the first time I've ever tried to model something like a character, so it did take me quite a long time. This was also the first time I ever did the whole rigging, skinning and animating thing, so that also took me a long time. In the end, I think the result came out okay. I'm not completely happy with it yet, but I guess it's passable for now. The running animation in particular is not super great right now, so I will probably change that later on. Since I was still using 3ds Max and pretty much everyone else in the indie scene is using Blender, I decided to use this opportunity to switch to Blender instead. Something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while now, but I initially didn't want to do it mid-development because it would take up too much time. And well, maybe I should have stuck to that idea. The reason I decided to switch anyway was because I got really frustrated due to a bug in my exporter plugin, which exports models from Max into the proper format for my engine. At least that's what it should do, because now it was turning everything into spaghetti monstrosities. And it wasn't necessarily this bug itself that frustrated me, but more importantly, the absence of community coverage, I guess. Like people asking questions on Stack Overflow and things like that. If you contrast this to Blender and their API, it's just a completely different world. Like for anything that you can imagine, there's probably a million search results. Not to mention the amount of tutorials for like the actual modeling and stuff. There's so many more tutorials for Blender, it's insane. So anyway, the annoying part and why I didn't switch earlier was because I would have to write an exporter for Blender as well as actually learn how Blender works. So I started doing that, and after about a week of switching between learning Blender and writing the exporter, I still wasn't really able to create models confidently and export them. And I really didn't want to waste any more time on this. I just wanted to work on the game. So I decided to put that switch on hold for now and focus on the task at hand. So after screwing around and not getting anything done for like 2 weeks, I wanted to get some actual work done. Up until now, all of the world gen and art has been completely placeholder and it didn't look very good, so it was high time that I did something about it. The first thing I ended up doing was actually throwing away my Perlin noise implementation because it was actually kind of slow and somewhat limited. I ended up replacing it with this really neat little library called Fast Noise Light. The cool thing about this library is that it comes with a GUI tool that lets you enter all the parameters that you can give it programmatically, so you can preview what the noise will look like before you actually use it in code. This is very handy and saves a lot of time. It also comes with a variety of different noise types, including cellular noise, simplex noise, and some other stuff that doesn't matter. So armed with Fast Noise Light, I started working on the new terrain generation. Here's some footage of that in progress. As you can see, the 3D noise really allows for some wild arrangement of rocks and trippy looking caves. Some of the later biomes that I have planned will really tap into that potential. I always wanted the game to really have this kind of ethereal, almost alien vibe in some places, but to start off, I wanted something simple and grounded, like a forest. I kind of want players to start off in a place that feels familiar and comfortable almost, and then when you get to the other biomes, that's when shit really hits the fan, so to speak. So one of the games I've always taken a lot of inspiration from and looked up to is World of Warcraft. I really love the way the environment is designed in WoW. It's very stylized yet natural looking at the same time. And one thing I noticed about the way Blizzard applies texture to the terrain in WoW, which makes it really believable, is that they have these little hills all over the place and they'll sort of texture them in 3 layers. First, they have a dirt layer, and then wherever there's a bit of a hill, they paint grass on top of that, or some kind of shrubbery. And then on the very tops of the hills, they kind of paint some kind of highlights, like flowers or a lighter color of grass. This gives the terrain like a really natural look, like it looks as if nature is sort of creeping along the terrain. So I thought it would be kind of neat to try and see if I could replicate this in a low poly style in the new random world generator. To accomplish this, I simply used another layer of simplex noise to generate these little hills on top of the regular terrain. Actually, I found it funny how much some areas in WoW actually look like they're generated by simplex noise when you look at them from the top down. So in addition to deforming the terrain, I used that same noise to decide which type of terrain should be applied. like the bottom 33% of values should be dirt, then a dark grass color in the middle, and then a highlight color on top. And this was the result. As you can see, there are some problems. There seem to be a lot of jagged edges everywhere, and it doesn't really look smooth. This happens because up until this point, I was only storing the type of terrain in each voxel, which means I could only interpolate color between direct neighbors and not any further than that. And I really couldn't get good looking results using this no matter how hard I tried. So the only option I had was to actually expand the voxel data structure to include an arbitrary color. This way I could assign pre-interpolated colors to each voxel. This does mean extra memory consumption, but when we look at the result, it does look way better. So once I was happy with the terrain generation, I started modeling a variety of nature props such as trees, rocks to populate the world. To spawn entities in the world, I use a technique called Poisson disk sampling to scatter objects over the terrain, which is basically random point generation where each point lies at least some minimum distance away from other points. This ensures that generated objects do not overlap. I also implemented something I call object clustering. What this does is each object, like a tree or a boulder, can spawn other objects around it, like mushrooms, smaller rocks, or roots in case of a tree. This could work recursively, so a boulder has a chance to spawn medium-sized rocks around it, and then each medium-sized rock has a chance to spawn smaller rocks or pebbles around it as well. This creates these sort of natural-looking clusters of objects. I've only just begun creating actual assets to populate the world, so there's still a lot of work to do, but I'm happy with the direction this is going in. The last thing I wanted to take a look at was the non-existent skybox. Up until now, I've just been using a flat color for the background with a fog color that doesn't even match it properly, so it creates this really abrupt transition near the far clip. So I created a bunch of cosmic objects like planets, asteroids, and moons to create a more dynamic looking skybox. I also animated them using the animation system so it doesn't look static. Instead of a flat background color, I now switched to a gradient that also now matches the fog color, and it is also affected by the position of the sun. And the best part is that we can now animate all of these properties based on the current time of day, so now we can have ourselves a nice day-night cycle going on. This instantly makes the world a lot more immersive. So I hope that you guys will now have a bit better of an idea in terms of the direction I want to go in with the art style. Bear in mind, everything you see is very much work in progress. It's very early days, but at least it's better than what we had before. If you guys enjoyed the video and want to follow the progress on the game, please consider liking and subscribing. We are very close to 1k subs. Also make sure to leave a comment below to tell me what your thoughts are so far, or you can join the Discord if you prefer a more direct way of communicating. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll try to not take another month this time. See ya!